Hey everybody, welcome to the real United States, and we're still in quarantine here in Michigan, in the United States, but you know, life goes on and we're trying to still make some video and keep it relatively fresh. And those of you who've been with us a while know that about once or twice a year, I like to do an episode about some local indigenous tree. And I did one of those last year. It's been about 6 or 7 months, I guess, since we did the Michigan state tree, which is the white pine. So since I'm kind of confined to my own property, we're going to do, well, actually several of those over the next few weeks. But I'd like to start with, well, actually the New Hampshire state tree. And that is this beautiful white birch. Now, also called a paper birch, various other names, I guess, that are used. There are about 67 different species of birch spread around the world, okay? And this particular species has about 5 varieties, which are the same species, but they're subgroups that have developed because of geographic reasons. So anyway, this is, like I say, this is the white birch. It's a paper birch. It's part of the genus Betula. I'll put that on the screen because I know I don't talk very clear, and I'm sorry about that. It is part of a larger family, of course, Betulucea. That should be on the screen now. And you're going to find that that word carries through here quite a bit, and you'll see why in a moment. The species I got right here, I think, I'm not a botanist, but I believe this is the Betula pepperifera, which is the paper birch. Now, why this is important here in the United States goes back again to the development of our nation when it was first being explored, when it was the New World. This tree, this bark, now many of you know this, was cut off and used, stitched together and used to make many things. One of them was canoes. Now, in the course of doing this channel, we actually showed you a replica, a rebuild of a birch bark canoe when we did the episode at Fort Michilimackinac, up in the Straits of Mackinac, the very northern part of the lower peninsula of Michigan. They had one there that they had built. So this was a very important material for the Native Americans for centuries, perhaps millennia, in terms of transportation, and especially in this part of the country. Now, one of the things is this is a very northern climate genus. Okay, the birches all are essentially very northern latitudes where they grow, and we are sort of here at the 43rd parallel, sort of towards the bottom of the range of this tree. It goes up into northern Michigan and other parts of the United States and up into Canada, but very, you know, popular up through the Great Lakes. A lot of it. Okay, I can't think of the word I'm searching for, but so what they would do again is they would split this, and they would peel off not just the outer bark, but the inner bark and actually the vascular cambium right down to the wood. Peel that out, and then they would lay it flat and press it and let it dry, and that was the material they would use for making canoes. It was also used for making vessels like bowls, and for housing, like what I saw in my research was wigwam, but I think it might be more properly called a yurt. But this material, again, was used like a shingle to make dwellings. So, again, it played a very, I would say a very important role in the development of the nation, because when the settlers, especially in this part of the country, first got here, They were explorers and missionaries, one of whom also we've done an episode about was Father Jacques Marquette. He was a French Jesuit priest that explored much of this area, and there's many streets and towns and railroads and all kinds of things named after him. He was the first European to discover the upper reaches of the Mississippi River. And he traveled around the Great Lakes in, I'm given to understand, birch bark canoes. So the birch was also used to make, like I said, vessels like bowls. And so again, you'd lay it out flat and you'd dry it and you bring it around and you'd pierce it and stitch it and seal it with some kind of a tar. And why that's important we'll get to in just a second. This tree is white for a reason. It's not just a fluke. It evolved this way. And it evolved this way so that in the northern climates, in the wintertime, when it was getting direct sun on, it wouldn't overheat. And this is important to deciduous trees, broadleaf trees, that they don't overheat. And as you get into the farther northern climates, this is why you'll find this tree versus a lot of other trees where you'll find only conifers, monocots, pines, spruces, things like that, in the more extreme northern climates, where you'll find these all the way up into northern Canada and Northwest Territories. Well, that white color, yes, it was an evolutionary development, but it's caused by a chemical called a triterpene, and specifically a triterpene called, you guessed it, betalain. And I got a picture of the molecule I'll put up right now, and which is not really all that interesting unless you're an organic chemist. But that material is what gives the tree its white color. So why is that significant, Paul? Why do I care about this? Well, because what it also is a natural fungicide. So if you made a canoe, or you made a bowl, or you made a hut, or you made a writing surface out of this bark, it's going to last a lot longer than many other alternative materials because it's not going to rot quite so easily. It's got this natural fungicide, this triterpene betalain, in it to keep it from decomposing. And that was another reason. One of its other uses was as a document. People wrote on this, it peels off. You can actually peel it. Although typically what they would do is they would take a deeper, thicker piece, because at the time they didn't care about killing the tree. See, that's not going to hurt the tree. That's just the outer bark. I didn't damage my tree. But you can see up here above where there's a larger piece peeling off. They would take a more substantial piece like that. They'd peel it back, and then they would flatten it, put it under a stone or something, let it dry, and use it for writing. It was also used for map making. So some of the very earliest maps of North America were made on birch bark, which I thought was kind of interesting. I think there's actually one or two that still exist. So a lot of different uses for this tree that were very important, again, in exploring and charting and documenting everything that was going on here, 300 plus years ago. Now today, the tree is not used for those purposes, but it's used for a lot of other purposes. And not just the Papyrifera, but the Betula, many species are utilized in a variety of things. There are it's really good for speaker cabinets. A very specific species of it is used, a couple of different ones, in Europe by a couple of speaker manufacturers because it has a very specific resonance. And so the cabinets that they mount their speakers in are made out of a species of birch. Here in the United States, you'll frequently see it made into plywood. Now, for those of you who don't know, plywood is made. You'll cut a length of wood, and you'll put it on what's tantamount to a huge lathe, but with a single blade, and you'll peel it. And you'll take that sheet of very thin material and then laminate it on top of other pieces of wood with glue and pressure. And, well, birch is then used as the outer layer. It's very stable. It's also very smooth and pretty. You know, it's much like maple, but birch plywood is very popular. Again, it's used for a lot of cabinetry. It's used in some speaker cabinetry, but it's used in kitchen cabinetry. So not quite as popular today as it was in, say, the 1970s. My father built quite a few cabinets with it back in the 70s, and it was a very nice material. And it's, like I say, it's a very stable. It's a hard wood, and it doesn't. It's not prone to warpage or twisting like some other woods. Anyway, this particular tree is in my yard. They usually grow as a single stalk in the wild. This one obviously has been here as an ornamental. It was probably planted here by the people that built the house many years ago. And that's why you have this multiple trunk arrangement. In the wild, they're usually single trunks. They'll get up to 30 inches in diameter. Again, the average tree is about 66 feet high. I'm told that, a remarkable specimen might reach 130 feet. That would be a big tree. And again, in these virgin stands that were here in Michigan and, well, in Ohio and Wisconsin and whatnot, back in the 17th century, the 16th century, would have been large and would have made, beautiful pieces of birch bark for whatever people were crafting with them. I have written on birch bark. It's fun if you happen to come across a piece, a tree that's down, you obviously don't want to use it, cut it off of your tree that's up because you'll kill it. But I have written on it. It's fun for people that are, into history. You send them a letter written on birch bark, they kind of like it. But anyway, that's pretty much it, I guess, that I will share with you today. I mean, I think I have shown enough, a big enough flourish of geek bravado with the, the botanical names and the chemistry. But anyway, it's an important tree here in the United States, and especially in the northern Midwest. But it is, like I say, found, it's ubiquitous around the world. Not necessarily this species, but very similar species. And in fact, I want to tell you this one little thing. For those of you that are still hanging on, there's a species that has, to my understanding, a sole, singular, remaining specimen alive today. And it's located here in the state of Michigan, down in the southwest corner of the state, down in Washtenaw County. And I don't know if anybody's making an effort to use vegetative propagation to, grow more of them. But yeah, it's it's definitely, you want to talk about endangered, there's only one. So I thought that was kind of an interesting little thing. It's more of a gray bark. It looks very much like this tree, but with a more of a pewter colored kind of bark. Anyway, so that's the paper birch, the white birch, here in the United States, our northern hardwood that we use for so many things. And I thought it was kind of interesting, and well, it was what I had that I could talk about without getting myself in any trouble by leaving home. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode. You got questions, comments, you just want to say hi, whatever, leave them down in the comment section down below. I love hearing from all of you. I really do, especially now, because I don't get an opportunity to see people. So I love hearing from everyone. Drop me a line. And if you're new here, well, I do something like this, like I say, a couple times a year. There's probably going to be a couple more because, well, I got different trees in my yards that I've never talked about. And I hope you find it interesting. Look around, see what else there is. Maybe you consider clicking subscribe to come along for the adventure, because we really do have lots more to show you. And as always, folks, Well, thank you for watching.